Okay, my name is Noe Torres, and I'm an author and UFO investigator from South Texas, from the Rio Grande Valley. And I've been interested in the topic of UFOs since I was probably 6 or 7 years old. I've been reading every kind of source material I can get my hands on from a very early age. I used to rush to the public library and check out all their UFO books. I was interested in the topic primarily because it became clear to me at a very early age that there's no way on Earth that we could possibly be the only intelligent beings in the universe, and that it was preposterous for anyone to suggest that we were. So, I grew up in the 60s, which was a time when NASA was conducting its space exploration missions. There were a lot of media fascination with outer space and space travel. We had landmark television shows such as Lost in Space and Star Trek. And so it was an era in which people seemed to be a lot more conscious of the possibility of life on other worlds. Nowadays, a lot of kids today seem to almost immediately concede that there might be life out there, but they don't seem that much interested or intrigued by it. So I think we have to kind of recapture the magic and the awe-inspiring feeling that the universe is teeming with life, and we are just a small part in kind of an isolated, out-of-the-way galaxy and in a tiny corner of the universe. And so we have to develop this broader perspective. So have aliens ever visited the Earth? That is the question that hangs on the minds of a lot of people. I have always considered that not only is there intelligent life elsewhere, but it's highly likely that there are much more highly advanced civilizations than ours out there. So we've got the possibility of civilizations, cultures that are thousands of years more advanced than we are scientifically and technologically. More than likely, probably, hundreds of thousands of years more advanced than we are. Because we do not have the command of the laws of physics that enable us to travel interstellar distances near the speed of light or beyond the speed of light. Doesn't mean that other cultures haven't developed this elsewhere in the universe. We know that our own physicists here on Earth, on paper, can tell you what exactly it takes to travel near the light of speed. It just so happens that the human race does not currently have the manufacturing capabilities. We do not know how to take their paper plans and translate them into a functioning machine. We don't have that yet, but we know how to do it. We just don't have the technology yet. We don't have the engineering yet. Well, to me, it's staggering to make the argument that nobody else in the universe, of the billions of other beings that we know exist out there, that no other civilization has ever hit upon the way to engineer faster than light or near the speed of light travel. And the other thing that goes along with is almost every day, every week or two, we hear about the discovery of new Earth-type planets that have been discovered by NASA, some of which are being discovered closer and closer to the Earth. And, if you're talking about places that we could reach within the lifetime of a human being, we could get there, in other words, say in 50, 60 years. Just imagine if we were able to travel near, and that's with our current technology, but just imagine if we could travel near the speed of light and we would reduce the time period that it takes to travel to just a few years. Imagine then that other civilizations could come here to us and which we think, those of us in the UFO field think that certainly at some point in the Earth's past, contact has been made by others, but for whatever reasons of their own, whatever agenda they're following, they have chosen to not reveal themselves in an overt public manner, possibly because they feel or they think that it would damage us as a civilization or as a species. So yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and of all the topics that one could consume himself with intellectually, I think thinking about our place in the universe and the high probability that other intelligent beings exist out there, I don't see anything else that could be more worthwhile to contemplate. I had always read books about UFOs and ETs for years, and finally I decided that, I had heard of a lot of UFO cases in South Texas over the years. In fact, I had collected newspaper clippings and done just some minimal research into some of the cases that have occurred here. So I decided to put them together into a book of South Texas UFO incidents. But while I was doing that, I came into contact with a very prominent UFO researcher from California, Ruben Uriarte. And we ended up I moved from that kind of regional UFO book that I was planning, and we did more of a one that was interest for the whole country, for the whole UFO literature world. And so we did a book called Mexico's Roswell, about a very significant event that happened in 1974 in Chihuahua, Mexico. So after we released that book in 2007, we went on the speaking circuit. We were on the George Norrie show. We did TV interviews. We were on the History Channel, and the thing moved very quickly after that. So Ruben and I have done about 7 or 8 books since then. We have a website, roswellbooks.com. He and I were very frequent speakers at the Roswell UFO Festival every year. So we spoke there from 2007 to 2012. We became very familiar with the Roswell story, which both of us think is a landmark event in UFO history. So we took that, we created this a publishing house called roswellbooks.com, and we have since published, as I mentioned, 7 books on the topic. And we appear at conferences together, and we do a lot of interesting projects, such as we created our own series of conferences throughout the state of Texas. We've had UFO conferences in Laredo, Presidio, El Paso, Del Rio, and here in South Texas in Edinburg. And then we also, one year in 2012, we were invited by the city of Roswell, New Mexico, to put on a UFO conference there. So we did Roswell, New Mexico conference in 2012 for the city of Roswell. So it's been a great adventure. We've been at this since 2007. Edinburg, I'm very gratified to say, my hometown, the Edinburg Conference, which we started in 2012, is now in its 7th year and has recently been rated the 3rd best festival for persons interested in aliens and UFOs by listverse.com. So when that honor came through, it was just an amazing one. We were talking to the mayor of Edinburg a while ago. He gave the welcome for our UFO conference this year. And he's just thrilled to death, as is the whole community. But everybody's been very supportive, and we're just extremely gratified at all this. Very early on in my career as a UFO investigator and researcher, I had the good fortune to have a series of long conversations with Stanton Friedman, who is like so well respected in the field. He was like who people think of as being the original civilian UFO investigator, the one who started all the movements to look into UFO and conduct research, because he was doing it in the late 50s, early 60s. So he's kind of the godfather of all UFO researchers. So one thing that Stanton told me very early on in my career, which made a tremendous impression upon me and still does today, he said, I was telling him, what do you think of this case? What do you think of that case? This was on the news recently, and they saw UFOs hovering over the lake. And he said, Noe, he said, I've been in this research since the 50s, and I have seen remarkable UFO evidence time and time again, year after year. There are cases that have just, they have amazed me, tremendous cases. But the thing is, I am no longer really concerned about individual cases. That's not something that I consume a lot of time thinking about. I'm looking at the deeper issues of faster than light travel, disclosure, what this all means politically and economically and from a societal perspective. So what Stanton kind of forced me to do is to look at the deeper issues of what human contact with ETs would be like, and what, how we can prepare for that, how it would impact society. Those are the things that interest him, and not so much the day-to-day sightings, which very clearly are telling us that strange things are observing us, strange objects are seen. That is a given to Stanton. He doesn't worry about that anymore. He did early in his career, but now the deeper issues are what's important, and I think we need to move to that level of understanding. As I alluded to earlier, I cannot think of an intellectual pursuit that is more rewarding and gratifying, and that sets your mind at ease and kind of allows you to kind of separate from the daily wear and tear of life's stresses, than to contemplate the possibility of life on other planets and the possibility that they have visited us and are possibly visiting us today. So I would invite everybody to do your research, attend events like UFO conferences, read the books by the great UFO researchers, and just admit the possibility that human beings aren't very high up on the totem pole of the universal civilizations. I mean, we may be pretty near the bottom, actually. So if you hold human beings to be the highest standard among all creation, that's probably not a wise thing to do. So I would advise everybody to open your minds and just give this fantastic issue some thought, and just remain open-minded and kind of let that be your life's philosophy, that you're not going to get all shrunken in and closed in by all the worries of life, but remain open.